Hey there YouTube, this is Emerald Dragon, and I'm actually doing a video. So I haven't done one in kind of ages, so I thought I would go ahead and show you a random deck that I kind of came up with. I just built this one last night, and I was, after having seen the new ban list and being really excited about it, I really want to try a few new things. And then I also saw the new 2010 starter deck, which has a card in it that I am really excited for, called Junk Destroyer. And that pretty much, a combination of the new ban list and Junk Destroyer are the reason that I built this deck. And this deck is also partially inspired by Goofy Plays, who I really love watching Goofy Plays videos. Well, he's now Right to Goof, so shout out to Right to Goof. Subscribe to him if you haven't, he's awesome. And he does great decks, fun duels, just all the cool stuff. And also his blog is really cool. I like hanging out on there too. So yeah. So I came up with this kind of random deck based off of those contributes, and it's called Junk Food. And pretty much what the point of this deck is to spam the new synchro Junk Destroyer. Junk Destroyer's effect is, when he is successfully synchro summoned, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of non-tuner monsters used in his synchro summons. Meaning, if you just do the normal level 3 Junk Synchron, which is the necessary tuner, plus a level 5 like Cyber Dragon, then you'll destroy one of your opponent's cards. So pretty much with this deck, the more complicated you get with your synchros and the more materials that you can put into it, the better it's going to turn out. So that's just pretty much the basis of this deck. It's called Junk Food. I hope you enjoy. First up, we have Gorz. Gorz is pretty much just what he's always been. He's a chump blocker. This deck doesn't really commit a lot to the field often, so if it's cleared out, this is just another good option to go Gorz. Fuck you, pretty much. 2 Caius Shadow Monarch. Just another way to use up the extra field presence you get off of some of the other cards in this deck. 2 Cyber Dragons. I really miss this card. It's probably one of my favorite monsters ever. I remember when it was at 3 and I loved playing it, but I understand why they limited it. But I'm happy to see it back at 2. I think that's a pretty fair number. And it's just a great floater, especially in a deck like this where it can add up to a really quick synchro for Mistworm or Junk Destroyer, or just any level 8 really that you want. Next we have 2 Lonefire Blossoms. This is just really in here to speed through your deck, get to some of your better cards, the things that you want, and it fills up your graveyard for Pot of Avarice, which is always a plus. Next up, 2 Dandylion. I was really surprised to see this come to semi-limited. I didn't even think about that, but being a fan of plants as I am, this is something I was really pretty happy about. And so, this deck, really, part of the whole strategy of this deck is to use up the tokens off of Dandylion and Dandylion himself to add up to a really high material count Junk Destroyer or even a Mistworm, either of which are going to give you massive card advantage. 1 Giant Rat, just because it's a decent, way to keep your field clear for a turn, or keep your field full for a turn. And he can search out Dandylion, Card Troper, and I believe Morphing Jar. We also have 1 Mystic Tomato. It's been here for the same reason as Giant Rat. I'm not playing many recruiters in this deck simply because they really don't play all that well with the rest of the deck, but they are a good way to thin your deck out a little and, just keep something good on the table. He can search out Junk Synchron, Gale, Pleaguespreader, and Sangan. Next up, 3 Junk Synchron. Junk Synchron is in here because he is the necessary component for Junk Destroyer. And also his effect is actually really good for getting out Mistworm or getting out Junk Destroyer, because when he's normal summoned he brings back a level 2, which can add up to a lot of higher up stars. I mean, all you need is another level 3 and you have a 2 card destruction Junk Destroyer, or say maybe you have a spare Dandylion token on the field as well, then you have an instant Mistworm, all of which are just really good ways to use him. So he's pretty good. Next up we have Ryko. Ryko Lightsworn Hunter is probably one of the better just splashable cards printed, just simply because he can be used for so many things. He can destroy cards that your opponent controls that you just really want off the field, you know, something like a Royal Oppression, a Royal Oppression, a big monster, anything really that you need gotten rid of. Ryko's great for getting rid of, and he mills cards into your graveyard, which is good for Pot of Avarice or just for being able to bring stuff back with Junk Synchron. Next we have one Card Trooper, pretty much in here for the same reason as Ryko was. Only real difference is that he's a level 3, so he can't be brought back, unfortunately, and when he is destroyed, then you can draw an extra card. Pleaguespreader, he's good in this deck as he's been in every deck that ever used the graveyard. He's just good. We have Blackwing Gale. Blackwing Gale is just a good way to chop your opponent's monster down and attack over them. And also, just another level 3 tuner is never really a bad thing. Sangan, I believe he can search out 11 out of 16 different monsters in this deck, if I'm not mistaken, which makes him a really, really good option for the deck, because when isn't it good just to add nearly anything out of your deck to your hand? Then we have Morphing Jar, just another a way to fill up your hand again, get your stuff going. You know, sometimes it's just good to be able to set and go, I have a new hand. And this is a really kind of random thing I threw in, but I wanted to try. Summoner of Illusion. This card's actually really good if you think about him. His effect is, you flip him and then just have to tribute any monster on the field other than himself, and then you can special summon any fusion monster from your fusion deck. And that means, you know, say you have a spare token off of a Dandylion that died, or a Ryko off of a Junk Warrior you didn't use, then just tribute it off and there's your Cyber Twin Dragon, which is what I use. That's all for the monsters. Next up are the spells. 2 Pot of Avarice, just because you're abusing your graveyard, you're filling it up with monsters, you may as well just shuffle the ones you want back in your deck and draw some extra cards. Brain Control and Mind Control. Pretty much any deck that synchros is going to play these, just because they're a great way to grab materials that you didn't have on the field, steal some of your opponents and synchro with it. Trunade, Heavy, and MST are pretty much the holy trinity of spell and trap removal cards. They add up for your big turns, or just, you know, your opponent has a big back row, you want to make them force their one solemn or something like that. Reinforcements of the Army, it's just in here to search out Junk Warrior, has no other target, unfortunately. Foolish Burial, great card in this deck because it lets you pitch either a Dandylion that you want in the graveyard to get your tokens out, or maybe your Pleaguespreader so that you can do some synchro shenanigans, or just whatever you might want in the graveyard at that moment, even a 5th card for Pot of Avarice if you really need it. This is a solar recharge, but it's supposed to be a Charge of the Light Brigade, because Charge of the Light Brigade will let you mill 3 cards and then grab a Ryko from your deck, which is a really, really good thing. One of My Bodies is a Shield. Great card. It's kind of like a poor man's Solemn, or someone, you know, who just doesn't want to have to deal with a trap card in their deck. Half their life points. Instead, you pay 1,500 just to negate something being destroyed. It keeps, you know, like your Mistworm or your Junk Destroyer that you put so much into getting out, just, you know, keeps it from getting killed. Enemy Controller. A really good card. A lot of people have been noticing how good it is again. Lets you, especially against something like Tragodia or Gorz, because you can go, you attack with something big like Mistworm, they Gorz you, then you can just tribute Mistworm to steal their token and finish the game or something. So it's a pretty good card. And now, finally, for the traps. We have 2 Bottomless, same thing pretty much in every deck out there. Just kill off their 1500s. 2 Limit Reverse. This is kind of a personal tech because of the fact that I believe it can get like 9 out of your 16 different monsters in this deck, which makes it really good, especially if you can get back a Dandylion when you're going for, you know, a big synchro summoning turn. So I think it's a pretty damn good card. Then we have Torrential, just because, you know, you have those obvious plays like, you know, Sangan, set Torrential, go, or Card Trooper, mill, set Torrential, go. And then finally we have Call of the Haunted. So, just acts as, you know, grab whatever you want back. So yeah, that is Junk Food. It's just a kind of a random deck that is really good at spamming the field with Mistworm and Junk Destroyer. It's an interesting deck. it's a lot of fun to play, and if you want to try it, I urge you to. It'll definitely screw with some people. But yeah, it's not the greatest deck in the world, but it's a lot of fun. So try it if you want. I'd love any feedback on it, any advice to make it better. Though flamers will be, blocked and or just marked as spam. So that's pretty much all. I hope you enjoyed. A couple of quick shout-outs. Shout-outs to all the guys of the Kringles crew. Also, shout-out again to Goofy Plays, and make sure to check out his blog. And also, just all the great YouTubers out there. Thanks for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe.